What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Oh, sun's in my eyes. Spin this thing around quick here. Welcome back to another edition of Bill's Vlogs. Today we're gonna visit the sprint car graveyard here at the shop, and I got a little bit of history here. I want to talk about these two cars and kind of give you, like I said, give you a little bit of the backstory on these. And I know some people that stop here at the shop, they see these cars sitting up here in the woods and wonder, hey, what's them cars sitting up there? So I'm going to give you a little story, a little history on these cars, and get a little information from my dad and my brother as well. So that's what's going on. Let me spin this camera around and show you what we got here. All right, so like I said, just a little bit of, so let me back up here a little bit. We used to have quite a few cars sitting up here in the woods. Our shop's right down there, and then up here in the woods, we'd keep cars up here that were no longer any good. They were crashed, they were old. For one reason or another, they were just, out of service, if you want to call it that. And but over the years, we've definitely gotten rid of everything. We've cleaned up around here, but we kept these two cars here, and I'll tell you why. A couple of reasons. So we'll start with this one here a little bit, and then we'll go to that one there. So this car here is a car my dad ran. We got a guest here. Hey, just stay over there. Anyway, so this is a Jenkins chassis. All right, and maybe you've never heard of them, maybe you have. And then over here we have a car. It's a stealth chassis, driven by Brad McClellan, a local race car driver. And I believe Brad had a couple of these stealth cars, and I think he won several races with them at Trailways and maybe even Lincoln, and maybe other tracks too. I'm really not sure, but so both these cars are still, you could put them together today and go race them. I know they're definitely older cars. As you can tell, they've been sitting here a long time. But like I said, this is a stealth chassis, and I'm not really sure. I know they don't make stealths anymore. And by all means, if you're out there and you're watching this, you probably have a little more information than I do. Comment below on what if stealth is now a different company. I think maybe it's a Spike. They call them Spikes now, but I'm not sure. But so anyway, let me walk around here and get a shot of the right side. And there's the right side. Now you might be asking why would I keep this car here? Why don't we just take it for junk? Like I said, the car is still straight. I thought it was kind of neat. Brad won the first 358 sprint car track championship at Trailways in one of these cars. Like I said, I think he had two of them. So I just thought it was kind of neat. Held on to it for no other reason than that. And I thought it was cool. Still got the motor plate in there and stuff like that. So now let's go over here to what I'm going to call the star of the show, is this car. And this car, I believe, was built in 95, 96, somewhere in there, somewhere in that range. We had bought this car brand new off of a fellow who bought it and never ran it. And this thing sat in our warehouse for several years, and my dad was still racing at the time. We were all three racing, I believe, myself, Danny, and my dad. And so this car, when we got it, it was already painted this color. Red frame. This actually has a tin. This is an aluminum body. The whole thing is aluminum. All of it. And what was really unique about these Jenkins cars, I always thought was cool, was the hood design. They had a big old snorkel on the hood scoop. You got your aluminum nose cone there, and had that hood scoop or snorkel up front there. Looks like maybe something built a nest in there recently, but so This wasn't the first Jenkins we ever had. Now, when my dad raced for Ralph Taylor in the mid 90s, 95, 96, when he got that car, that team, they had two Jenkins cars in 95. And that was probably right around the time these cars really became popular. I believe they were built in Kansas somewhere. But the cars that we got when my dad drove for Ralph Taylor, they had the same design body on it, but it was all fiberglass. So they had a fiberglass snorkel instead of a fabricated aluminum body. And there's some other unique things about this car. Magnesium motor plate and fairly lightweight stuff on the whole car, actually. We did add this halo here, but it's got aluminum clamps for the steering. So a lot of the same stuff you see today this car had way back then. Now, had a dual mount for the radius rod, some kind of a different mount there for where the motor attached to the chassis there. But anyway, why is this important? Why do we keep this car? So this was the last car that our dad ever raced. He won several races with this car at Lincoln, Trailways, and also crashed this car very epically several times as well, to the point where we've had several different front clips put on this car. I'm not even sure if you can see where. It looks like maybe some primer right there, so I'm going to say in here somewhere. It was probably cut off and replaced from there forward. Obviously we got some damage to the body, but I thought these cars were always very unique. They weren't around super long. Probably the most notable person to run them might have been Sammy Swindell. He ran them in I think it was a Bull and Hannah Snacks car, was a Jenkins. And like I said, early to mid 90s for a few years. And I believe I'm gonna get my dad on here. We're gonna talk to him a little bit, but I'm gonna say probably 2003, 4, 5, somewhere in there in that range. We'll see what he has to say as to when he ran this car. And one other cool fun fact was he held the one lap track record at Lincoln Speedway. He consecutively, I guess I'm saying that right. Somebody else had the track record. He broke it with this car. And then I think a year later, he broke his own track record with the same car. And then he held that same record for quite a few years with the 358 division. So anyway, let's get down here and hear what he has to say. And it should be a fun story. All right, Dad, so tell us about these Jenkins car up in the woods. The one you ran, the blue one up there. What do you remember about that car?
Well, the car worked good, just I had shitty shocks on it that last show.
It wasn't the last show.
It wasn't the last race?
No, hell no.
So let's go back to the beginning. Dan, you help me. If you got some input here, you can add it too. So, well, hold on here. Let's go back a little further, Dad. Jenkins cars, the first time you drove a Jenkins was the 39 car. Remember that? You drove the purple.
Path Valley car.
When you started driving for Ralph Taylor, the 39 car, he had two Jenkins cars back in 95.
Maybe.
Yeah, he did. You remember much about them back then?
Yeah, I mean, I could have sworn maybe we did it, two of them. The one had a fiberglass hood, yeah.
They both had fiberglass hoods at the time, yeah.
Well, that's got a steel hood on
That's
it.
got an aluminum hood.
All right. Well,
Yeah. That was a Jenkins. That's
Right.
a Jenkins. All right, so you drove for Ralph. Yeah, you had a Jenkins back then. How about it, Danny?
Was that?
They were Jenkins. We first got Ralph stuff.
Yeah.
You
Then we
remember.
Then we got a Gambler.
In middle of 95, we got a Gambler.
Right, but we got rid of one of the Jenkins, if I remember correctly, or we kept it for a spare, and we had a Williams Grove Gambler, or wherever we raced. and then we ran Friday nights at Path Valley with the Jenkins.
Yep. So I think so we got that out of the way. 95, you ran at Jenkins for a little bit. Now you went to a Gambler. And then let's fast forward. What year do you think it was we got the blue car out of there? Any idea, Danny?
Probably
I remember buying it for the
04, I would say. I started in 02. He was running Gamblers then.
Yeah.
The purple flame car would have been like 03.
03?
Yeah, because we all took pictures together. You both had flames on your cars.
Yeah.
I couldn't race everywhere, so I'd have been 15. That would have been 03.
Yeah.
So I would say probably 04, because 05, because I ran Lincoln in 04. And when I think he blew the shock out, I think that was 05. Or not blew the shock out.
Yep. All right, so we'll come back to that in a second. All right, Dad. So you
That
get
car sat next door, just the color it is now, for at least 2 years.
yeah.
At least.
All right, so the Jenkins up in the woods. You remember buying it
Yeah, we had it sitting over there.
in the warehouse.
Yeah.
It was brand new.
Yeah, we bought it from that guy
Yep.
from New Jersey or wherever.
Yep. So it was probably what? Let's just guess. 10 years old when we finally used it.
Not quite. It's a 96.
96.
96.
So tell us a little bit about that car. What you remember running? What you remember about that car?
I mean, it felt good. I liked it, but then we got the Mickey Mouse around with different shocks and shit, and we had a shock on that right rear. It collapsed, you know, when I was leading. I didn't even know I was going to crash, you know.
Yeah.
It just compressed and stayed that way.
And then what happened?
Well, I crashed. I flipped.
Which way did it turn? Turn to the right.
Yeah, I think it turned to the left. The right
It
rear.
went to the right.
It did.
Hard right. Off of turn 2.
Yeah, I was right behind it.
I don't remember.
I was running second.
You remember?
I remember it collapsing, that's all.
Yeah, and then oh shit.
Huh?
Oh shit.
Yeah. I
It
mean,
wasn't the first time he knocked the front end off of it.
That's it. All right, so
This is also the same car that you ran over the Crimes' right rear
Yeah.
at Lincoln and went into the catch fence in turn 4, which then you got a bill from the fence company from Mike Cregan. Mike and Mike.
it was an April Fool's joke. Remember he sent you a bill for
yeah, I
the
remember.
catch fence.
So that was 2 times that you knocked it off from the radiator forward. There was a third time.
I think there
somewhere,
was.
from-
I think you crashed at Trailways, but you won with that car. One was at the Trailways, I believe, and Lincoln.
And Lincoln.
And Lincoln. One with that car at Trailways and Lincoln. The Jenkins.
Jenkins.
Would
Yeah.
have been your last wins. Was in that car. Last wins.
Yeah. So Danny, the night that the
The
shock.
Tonys, they didn't collapse. He just hit the cushion wrong.
What? I mean, tell everybody what was going on.
Dad was leading, and I was catching him. I was in second, and he was probably about 6 car lengths in front of me. And he hit the cushion with the right rear on exit, like where you go across the track to go out in the pit area at Lincoln. There used to be like a bump there. Still is kind of a bump there, where you go across the track, and there was this particular night there was a cushion built up like before it. So he was driving across there, and back then, you know, our cars weren't really set up very well, especially Dad's. He had some old theories that weren't very good. Anyway, he hit the cushion, and it just picked the front end up and just turned right.
We say cushion. It was a big curve.
Yeah, and I mean, he hit that thing square with the front end, and that was the last I seen him go right into the outside fence, and I was going past. And I remember pulling it out of gear. We got halfway down the back stretch. Holy shit! So I jammed on the brakes really hard. We had aluminum brake rotors back then, and I stuck it back in gear and drove all the way back around the racetrack. Not supposed to, but I did because it's my dad. And the thing was destroyed. Then later on that night was when Tony Chip spun out or crashed in turn 1, and Galen Cole never threw the yellow, and I hit him.
You were leading.
I was leading, 2 laps from winning. Decided he wanted to get the lap in, and yeah, there's video. Like,
Yeah.
he's crashed, and we're gonna wait till the leader gets past the line so we can count the lap. Well, once I committed to the top, there he said,
Done.
Tony Ship, shit, something like that.
Crash.
Crash. Both
All right.
was leading. Both had crash race cars.
So, Dad, that Jenkins up there has a little more history to it because you set quick time and a new track record with that thing twice
Above the cushion.
at Lincoln. 358.
All right.
Do you remember that?
I remember. I had fast time. But you were faster than me, I
Well,
thought.
that was a couple years later.
Okay.
You kept the track record for a couple years and then eventually it changed. But it was with that car.
That car was really light other than the hood. Like that car in general, your Jenkins, was light.
What made that car so good?
It was light.
It was light.
It was light.
You
Yeah.
built everything light on that thing. We had the titanium buckley yoke on it, a small 25-gallon fuel tank on it, and then
Yep.
457 winter's rear. It hung in your trailer for how long? With
Yeah.
a short spline, just
Short
so
spline.
it was that much lighter.
Yep.
Everything was light. People understand, like, racing that, Dad raced that car and ran a buckley yoke. You just sit there and watch the U-joint just spin.
Yeah, no protection between your feet.
None. It was lighter. And
It
it worked
was-
better.
It worked better because it floats up and down and front and back.
Right, it is a better piece.
What car was I driving when I got hurt?
Gambler.
That was a Gambler.
Yeah, that's right. I remember.
And then that was the end of the Gamblers. And then that's when Scott Carl destroyed the Jenkins down the back stretch with Kevin Gobrack.
Yeah.
Had a 2-inch phone book underneath the seat, underneath his butt.
Well, Dad, you were pretty fast in that Jenkins.
I don't know.
We did have a Gambler after Dad
We
got
did.
hurt though, because
We
that's
did.
what we ran at Port Royal.
It's true, we all had Gamblers.
You know, like when
Purple with-
when Rick Hench drove it,
Well, we had
and
that
Jamie
Gambler up
Steffi
there.
drove it,
And
and
that Gambler up there.
who else drove it?
That was
Darryl
a
Steinling.
yeah.
a
That was Ralph's 39
That was a
Gambler.
Gambler.
Non-down tube Gambler.
Why was Scott Carl in the Jenkins? I have no idea.
Because that's what we had left, probably.
Somebody else must have crashed something else. Rick crashed the Gambler a couple of times at Port.
Daryl Stomley crashed.
Darryl Steinling?
Yeah. Started on the pole feature and spun out and crashed.
In front of the
96.
in front of the field.
Shit happens. Well, Dad, that's a little bit of racing history. How about it?
Yeah, that's it.
On the Jenkins. They were built in Dodge City, Kansas.
Yeah.
Ken Jenkins.
We'll probably never get
And
rid of that
and,
car.
and he worked for Maxim, right,
I
Danny?
think Jenkins was dead when we drove that car.
No, he was still alive.
Was he?
Yeah.
I think he.
Yeah.
Well, I think I read somewhere he got sick in 02. So sometime after that.
Yeah, maybe. All right. A little history on the Jenkins. Well, all right. Well, some pretty cool stories there about my dad and these Jenkins cars. I thought I'd just want to share this with everybody. I thought it was kind of unique that these cars were, they were around and then they weren't around. Cool to hear Danny's input on some of this stuff too. So just circle back a little bit on that 39 car that was the first Jenkins car my dad had. He did win a couple of races with that car. I believe he won at Lincoln early in '95, and then he won, I believe, a race at Path Valley in that car as well. Path Valley did a little stint on Friday nights where they ran against the Grove. Lasted a couple months, didn't last real long. And then, you know, this blue car here, which we talked about, pretty neat because, you know, we got to watch our dad race, and then we also got to race with him, Danny and I both. I believe, I think there was a couple of nights where we ran 1-2 or even 1-2-3. The three of us with Dad driving his car, and just a small piece of history for us here, the Dietrich boys. So we'll probably sit here forever. I'll just put it to you that way. It's just cool, you know. I want to add this quick in here as I'm thinking about this. I'm reminiscing a little bit. I remember we had this car just sitting in the warehouse for sale. Nobody was interested in it. It just sat there and sat there and sat there. And then Dad decided, hey, let's just put that thing together and I'll run it. And I think the first night out with this car, he led the feature at Lincoln for, I don't know, 17 or 18 laps, and he almost won. He had a late caution come out. And if my memory serves me correct, I believe Corey Haas actually passed him driving the Michael Barshinger car, or I think it could have been his own 11 car, late in the race, and Dad ran second. And it was just cool. It was just cool to see my dad be able to jump in the car. And you know, we had a setup sheet for this car. It came with a little three-fold paper setup sheet. You just went off the sheet and all the measurements and what have you. So different times back then, but as you can see, the cars haven't changed a whole hell of a lot. So anyway, that's a little different kind of a vlog for the day, and I hope everybody enjoys it. By all means, comment down here, let me know what you think. Do you remember this car? Do you remember that car? Brad McClellan, a hell of a race car driver as well. And so thanks for watching. As always, I appreciate it. Everybody out there, have a great day, and we'll see you next time.